most micro unit of demand is utility. Utility is a psychological phenomena. The fact that you are willing to buy certain things show that you have some value judgment about those things in your mind. And based on that value, you always have a price in your mind that, hey, I think this thing is so much useful to me that I can pay so much price for this. So that is why I said that utility is the basis of the price mechanism, the modern capitalism, the price system of the modern world. It's a very important concept. Utility. Utility, if I have to give you one-liner definition, utility is the want satisfying power of a good or a service. When you fall ill and you go to the doctor, why don't you go to the gymnast? Because you think that your want satisfying power lies in the prescription of the GP, the general physician, the doctor. So that shows that we avail a service because that service is useful to us. So you always have some kind of utility. For example, if you are very, you can say a diehard student of economics and you want to go or read all the classics, maybe you can pay a very high price. You are willing to pay a very high price for a textbook of economics. But if you have no interest, neither you have an interest nor it's in your syllabus or in your program, something about how to say it, something about how to learn making furniture. Okay, probably you will not pay any amount of money on that good because maybe it doesn't go with your utility. It doesn't satisfy your wants. You don't want it. If today somebody offers me, hey Shab, there's a book fair there, and all the book of clinical psychology are at 90% reduction. Believe me, I will not buy a single book because I have no interest in that. But if somebody tells me that this bookshop in Keskusta, they have slashed 90% prices on all the classics of finance, probably I would spend whole day shopping there. Because I have utility, because I know that this product which I'm going to buy have immense power to satisfy my, it has my want satisfying capacity. Now I use the word satisfaction, want satisfying. Some people can assume that utility is satisfaction. They can say, okay, I use two sentences. I buy this computer because it has a utility. And then I say, I buy this computer because it gives me satisfaction. They're not same. They look same, but different. They are same, but different. How? Remember, utility is a pre-consumption phenomena. Satisfaction is a post-consumption phenomena. When you go to a restaurant and you see the menu card and you find that, okay, this dish I want to have. Why you want those three dishes? Because you think that that can increase your that can give you lots of satisfaction. But do you notice you haven't got the satisfaction yet? So why you order the dishes, those dishes? Because you think that they are going to give you utility. Now, when you eat the food, those dishes can be awful. You haven't got much satisfaction. So satisfaction is post-consumption and utility is pre-consumption. Make sense? So the basic idea is that if you only buy something and higher the utility, higher the price you are willing to pay, given that you have enough income. Remember last week we discussed about desire, wish, want, and demand. Wish, building castles in the air. Want, you genuinely need it, and now you are genuinely working towards its fulfillment. And now you have genuinely enough resources that you can buy it. It becomes a demand when you say, hey, now I'm prepared not only to buy it, but also spend my money on it. That shows more seriousness. So here again, utility is symbolizing that how much price you're willing to pay. It depends upon the quantum of utility. Higher, more the utility of something, more you will be willing to pay, right? And again, this utility is very dynamic concept. Look at you are now in your late teens or early 20s, most of you. Okay, I'm still in my early teens. So do you think that you like the same goods and services which you used to like 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago? Is your consumption pattern changing? Something, think about, go to your memory lane, think about your childhood. There were certain things which you were really, you were yearning for. Maybe you don't want them anymore. Maybe you don't like them anymore. Or probably you like them, but not with the same intensity. But there'll be many things which you never even heard of, let alone consumption. But now those things are a very important part and parcel of your life. You get my point? So utility is a dynamic concept. Things change, life change, your demands, your needs change, your wants change, so on and so forth. When I used to be in UK, I don't remember if I ever drank coffee there. But I have undergone. When I do some kind of retrospection of myself, last 8 years, I think I like drinking coffee now because that's an evolution within my consumption pattern. Okay, so utility is a dynamic concept. It remains, it goes, it remains, it goes. Even if it doesn't go, its intensity is very much variable. Now here it looks like a mathematical formula. C is a function of x1, x2, x3. X1, X2, X3. Here I can assume that these are different goods and services which can give you satisfaction. If you look around your current lifestyle, you can make a list of goods and services which may give you utility, which may give you satisfaction or utility. Should I use the word utility or satisfaction? Satisfaction. Why satisfaction? When you go to the store and you're still on the way, you haven't cooked your food yet, and you have a plan, okay, I'll buy these many tomatoes, I'll buy this much chicken, I'll buy this much garlic, and so on and so forth. Is it satisfaction or utility? Utility. So your consumption will depend on, look, it's a mathematical expression. I would say consumption. C stands for consumption in economics. And it says C is a function. We start with the letter F. Consumption is a function of many goods. You have n number of goods and services which gives you satisfaction. It could be goods or services. All right? So it's not just goods, they can be services also. But when I say consumption is a function, basically I'm saying that consumption depends on, this letter F stands for depends on. Consumption depends on several goods and services as symbolized as X1, X2, X3, and Xn. These are different. There's n number of goods and services which can give you utility. A rational consumer is a utility maximizer. One thing I think I remember the very first lecture or the very first day when we met, we discussed something about rationality. That only those people or those institutions are studied in business studies who are rational. Rational means those, if I define rationality, in the simplest possible manner, rationality stands for common sense. They have common sense, even though there is a saying that common sense is the most uncommon thing in the world. But let's assume that everybody's rational. It means that if for the same price, the same quality, everything is same, you have a bigger bundle of products, and against a small bundle of products, you will go for the bigger one. If you're a company who is going to invest, one form of borrowing is at 3%, you get money, you get the loan at 3%, and the second form, the second alternative is 5%. All else being same, if you borrow at 5%, you are an irrational manager. If a seller can give you 20 euro per product, per unit, but you choose to sell at 15, you are not rational. A rational consumer is the one who wants to have the maximum utility with a given amount of spendings. Because there's no free lunches. When you want to achieve, when you want to convert your utility to satisfaction, you have to pay the price. So for the given price, a rational consumer would like to maximize the utility. So you're as a consumer, your ultimate destination is to reach the highest, the peak, the summit of the maximum utility. So you want to get the maximum satisfaction at the end of consumption. That is something about utility, and utility is the basic foundation of modern day business world. But remember, utility is the foundation of the demand, and demand is the foundation of the price mechanism. If we ignore utility, then we ignore demand, and if we ignore demand, the modern free market system would collapse. It will not exist. Remember, we are living not in the dictatorial societies. You are not forced to buy certain things. In the past, there have been some regimes, there have been some era where the markets were supply-sided. Supply-sided. Whatever you supply, people have to demand. It was with a dictate. But hey, this is available, buy it or leave it. But then we see an era where consumer is the king. Consumer dictates terms. You have the quality, you have the variety, you have so many related auxiliary services about the consumption. So when you buy a car, not only you want to buy the car, but you also want to see what is the after-sales services system. How quickly you can get the spare parts if the car is broken. So all these things are signifying the demand-sidedness, utility. So in those countries or in those economies or in those systems where consumer is the king, utility is very, very important. Right? Any points, any question you want to discuss with me, if you have any queries? Is it fine? Do you get it? Yeah? Remember, utility is measurable, but it's measurable psychologically. You get my point? It's measured psychologically. It's introspective. You think in your head. If today you want to make a decision, hey, you know what, with the given amount of money, either I would buy milk or I would buy something else. Okay? And you choose to buy milk. It means that you know in your mind, you were calculating intuitively that the utility that you get from milk is more than that you get from chocolate. Since you have the limited amount of money, so hence you prefer milk over chocolate. All right? But next time, when you go to the shop and you find that, hey, what should I buy, milk or chocolate? And then you find that, hey, I have half a bottle of, half the carton of milk still in the fridge. Why should I buy more milk? Okay, hence, chocolate gives you more utility than milk in that case. So you can buy chocolate than milk. So that's why I'm saying that utility is a very dynamic concept. And all these calculations you do in your head. Not clearly, you're not writing. When you go to Lidl or any store, you're not taking any piece of paper and writing, okay, chocolate gives me 40 utility and milk gives me 65 utility. But it's an introspective in your mind. It reflects through your behavior. The consumption pattern shows that what type of products, goods and services are lying in your, which are showing your utility preference. Yes. Mm-hmm. Of course. I'm talking about one person. At the moment, we're talking about one person. Yeah. So when I say, let's say we are living in a society where people prefer roses over guns. Mm-hmm. So then it will be reflected through the consumption pattern of many people. So we make an aggregate demand. So one person plus second person plus third person. And then we find that the aggregate demand for roses is more than guns. So from the individual utility, we can get the total societal utility by aggregation. And that reflects that, hey, if you're a gun maker, don't come here because there's no demand. Supply elsewhere. But if you have roses, please come. Yeah? One more characteristic of the utility concept is that the marginal utility is diminishing. The marginal utility is diminishing. I use three words: marginal, diminishing, and utility. Only utility was featuring on the last slide. Now I'm adding two more words: marginal and diminishing. By order, by the ranking, we must understand what is marginal. The marginal utility is the addition made to the total utility by consuming one extra unit of the product or a service. Sound sense? Imagine you're having your lunch and you take one portion of some vegetable, some dish, for example, and you're very hungry. You're very hungry. All day you were working. A very cruel teacher of economics was making you work very hard. It didn't give you break. And now because it's time to take lunch, you take a portion of meal. And let's say that you are just hogging. You're so hungry that you want to go for it. Because you were hungry for the last 3.5 hours. You eat first portion. And now you think that I'm still hungry and you want to take a second portion. Tell me truthfully, does second portion gives you same amount of satisfaction? The one you had the first one? And then you consume second unit and you find that, you know what, I think I still have some capacity that I can eat third portion. And then you take third portion and so on and so forth. Ultimately you say, I don't want to eat anymore. Don't we say, do we eat indefinitely? At some stage you say that I'm satisfied. When you say this word, that I'm satisfied, no more portion, then the additional utility of this extra portion of meal is 0. So let's imagine that when you had the first unit of portion, let's imagine for the sake of, I just make some hypothetical numbers, you were getting 8 units of satisfaction. You consume second, you have 5. You consume third. Eventually, when you say no more food, then the extra addition to your accumulated utility is zero, nothing. And if you still eat, if you have made some bet with somebody that, you know what, I want to show how much I can eat, even though I'm not hungry, then there's a risk that one can fall ill. So when you eat and you don't get happy, you don't get satisfied, on the contrary, you fall sick, then I can say that that unit of satisfaction is negative, because it didn't give you positive satisfaction, it gave you the negative satisfaction. It made you sick. So there's always, so this, when I'm saying you get some bundle of satisfaction from the first portion, the second bundle is less, the third is lesser, and then there's no more addition to your satisfaction. Here I'm talking about extra satisfaction, additional. This extra additional is called word marginal. This is called marginal utility. And since at some stage you stop consuming, and you yourself said that when you were hungry and you had the first portion, you were valuing the mental value judgment of the first portion was very high. The second portion was lesser. So this extra, this marginal utility is diminishing, because if the marginal utility is not diminishing, constant, then you will never consume, then you will never stop consumption. You will consume endlessly, the same pace. And if the marginal utility is positive, then you will, more you eat, more hungry you will feel. And imagine a situation that you have started food, you started eating, yeah, and more you eat, more you feel hungry. So only logical, rational choice left is that the marginal utility is diminishing. Okay? I can give you more examples, but then I have to stop recording, pause recording at least. Don't say that Shab gives very funny examples, but very realistic. Well, then you are not a normal consumer. And we only study normal people in economics. then that person is born on planet Earth by mistake. Should have been elsewhere. Okay? So this example probably can, it's not a very objective example. It's just some ideas that, well, despite my not writing any alcoholic word, I couldn't stop. So the example is pints of beer. So you can see that if you are a rational consumer, if you're a normal human being, and then you may reach a stage which is depicted. -5 is very important. Look, the party, desperate to go to the party and start consuming something, you know what is that? It's written here. The total satisfaction is increasing. The utility is increasing. Look, they are so similar words that even I can mix them up. The total utility is increasing. But if you notice, the rate at which it increases is going down. The velocity of increase in total utility is going down. And this velocity, this incremental to the utility is called marginal utility. That is going down. And at some stage, it becomes zero. I'm sure at some stage, it will be zero somewhere. And that is a time when you should consume. We should stop consuming. But if we never listen to our rationality, then we can have the negative utility. And more we consume from hereafter, more negative utility will go up, will go on, and eventually we can be in trouble. And then we can find that, hey, I don't want to consume this thing anymore because I'm feeling so bad. Many times after having this kind of situation, we decide not to consume this thing. But then there's a problem with do, because there's a time gap. There's a lack of regularity of consumption. You get my point? I'll give you one example. Let me find some example. I know some of you raised hand. I'll come to you soonish. You have been running a marathon, or if not marathon, a very, very long distance race, and it's a sweltering hot. The month of June, the sun is scorchy. The only thing you want is to have a glass of water so that you can feel some relief before you faint. And guess what happens? There is somebody standing on the way and say, do you want some water? Yes, have a glass of water. You drink it. Can you imagine how much utility you attach to that glass of water? Unimaginable. And then what happens? Then you want second glass of water. In the normal continuous consumption, the second glass of water would give you, of course, it will make you happier, but it will not be as utilitarian as the first would be. But guess, now here's the catch. There's a catch now. The catch is that the person who's serving you water, he says that, hey, no. You can't have more than one glass of water. Have 5 more rounds and then take the second glass of water. And you have no choice. You take 5 more rounds, come back, and you have a second glass of water. Guess what? The second glass can give you even more utility because you were already unsatisfied. On top of that, you have to run 5 more kilometers. And now it can be possible that the second glass is giving you more satisfaction than the first would give you. And then you want one more, and the guy says, no. Take 5 rounds more. Then you have the third glass of water. In that case, this law can fail. But then why is this law failing now? Because the consumption is not continuous. This law, the marginal utility diminishes if consumption is continuous. I gave you example that you were hungry, you wanted first portion of meal. So I said that you were having lunch. So one portion after second portion after third portion. But if you have one portion during breakfast, the second portion at lunch, and third portion at night of the same product, same food, then I can't say that marginal utility is diminishing, because you can feel hungrier during lunchtime. You can feel even more hungry at the night time. So we have an assumption here that this idea, I can see somebody talking, so get ready for answers now. Then the rule is that this concept is valid, is applicable if the consumption is continuous. I make this example even more dodgy, rather more obnoxious. You ran a long distance race and you want water, and somebody says, hey, I give you water. But the person is not showing there is a water. And you said that, hey, please don't do this joke with me. Last time I ran, and this guy gave me 1 glass of water, and then the second glass I got after 1 hour, and the third glass I got after 2 hours. So please don't do this cruel joke with me now. And he says, no. I will give you water, all the water you need right now. No more running. And then will you feel happy about it? Is it a good situation? It's a good situation. Because you will get all the water now. You don't have to rerun to get second glass of water. Okay? And then you say, where is the water? And the guy bring a big can of water. But this time he say, oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to bring glass. There's a tub of water, but there's no glass. But I have a spoon. Can you come closer? I can put a spoonful of water in your mouth. Can you feel how desperate you will feel? You will be, isn't enough to annoy you? You ran a marathon, again, the scorching heat. You want some water, and this person is saying that, hey, I plenty of water. You can even swim in it, but you don't have a glass. You're giving spoon. At some stage, this person would be so desperate that he would maybe jump in the water and do whatever he wishes to. But drinking water is like coaxing. There's a word in English called coax something. Tantalizing. Is it English class? Have you heard the story of King Tantalus? King Tantalus. The King Tantalus story is that he was a Greek king. He asked for some blessing, and the blessing was that you will never have shortage of food and water. But then this king failed to hear from this angel that, but unfortunately, you will never be able to eat it or drink it. So every time this king would be in the water and feel thirsty, lower he goes to touch his lips on the water surface, lower the water level will go. This is tantalizing. You're running a marathon. You want water now. And what do you get? Spoonful of water. So the person is saying, sit here, I can give you a spoon. No, just visualize the situation. In that case, the law of marginal utility doesn't apply, because the unit of consumption is unreal. When you go to eat, we always assume that you'll be eating in a plate, drinking in a glass. Even for different kind of drinks, we have different types of glasses. That shows that every commodity which you consume has certain prescribed unit of consumption. If those units are completely bizarre, completely odd, then the law doesn't apply. So this law is not a kind of universal law. If we don't fulfill the assumption, the first assumption is that utility is measurable, utility declines because eventually what you want to consume, the intensity slows down. We feel satisfied at some stage. The third was that the law only applies if the consumption is continuous. It's not that one glass of water now and the second after 4 hours. No. And the fourth is that there should be appropriate, suitable units of consumption. When you drink water from glass, not from bucket or from tub. Okay? When you get a serving, you get in a plate, not on the table, not scattered in your chair. So there is certain set of standards which we must comply with. Only then this law or this theory would be applicable. No. Just recall this picture that the starting point of total utility and the marginal utility is same. Remember, the marginal utility is the addition made. So when you were not consuming anything, zero consumption, there was zero total utility, there was zero. Well, you can't find marginal utility then. 1, from 0 to 1, extra consumer, extra unit, the total utility jumped from 0 to 20. Hence, the addition is 20 altogether. From 1 to 2, it jumped from 20 to 38. Addition is 18. Addition means marginal utility. From second to third, it's 38 to 54. Addition is 16. 12, 8, 7, 6, 5, 3. At some stage, it will be 0 in between. But when you go from 9 to 10, it means that it's a lesson to the consumer that, hey, stop. If you go beyond this level of consumption, you may have negative consumption, which means you can fall sick. Yes. You can see that the blue line is highlighting the total utility curve. that as you consume, the level of satisfaction, it gives you more units of satisfaction, it goes up, 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 up. Eventually, it stops consuming. And if you still are undeterred, if you keep consuming, then the total utility will go down. In the normal consumption, I gave you the example of that we can fall sick if we keep consuming too much of whatever. Excess of everything is bad. And if you look at the red line, you can see that the starting point is same. If you look at 1 here, 1, 0 to 1, they have the same starting point basically. Recall this picture. The starting point of marginal utility is also starting from unit 1. But then what happens? The marginal utility curve is going down. Can somebody explain me that when the total utility curve, the blue line, the blue curve is rising, why is the marginal utility line, red one, going down? Can somebody tell me? Somebody help, please. The additional, the incremental, or in the conceptual terms, the marginal utility is going down. And when the total utility is maximum, can you see it's almost parallel to x-axis? At that time, you can see that marginal utility is 0. It means that, hey, I have eaten enough, no more food. When you say no more food, it means that the extra unit of food will not bring you extra satisfaction. But if you keep eating, the marginal utility will decline, become negative. Negative means that it can reflect some harmful effect on you, right? Yeah, you have to go to the doctor. Okay, so this is some kind of yeah, not always. Look, the capacity, wait a sec, capacity is different. If this curve is for an athlete, maybe the negative effect will show on very high level of consumption. For a person with a very lean frame, all right, who doesn't eat much, this red line touching the x-axis could be very early. It's very personal. It's not a universal. Remember, we are studying microeconomics. Micro means one person, one firm, one individual. We're not talking about the full people. I mean, it's not a universal law that this doesn't apply on Bolt. I think this doesn't apply on all those big wrestlers or athletes. But this is for the sake of understanding the idea. The idea is important that at some stage, definitely, if you have the continuous consumption, then your marginal utility will become 0. And when the marginal utility becomes 0, the total utility is maximum. Hence, you have got the maximum satisfaction. Hence, you have reached your consumer equilibrium. The equilibrium is arrived when you find that now the extra satisfaction is 0. Before, on the left side, you can say that we are under equilibrium phenomena. We are underfed, hence pre-equilibrium. But if you go beyond this, then you are overstretching the equilibrium point, which can be harmful to the consumer. And one line here is a little bit mathematical. MU stands here, marginal utility. Marginal utility of nth unit is equal to total utility of nth unit minus total utility of n minus 1. So I would say that the marginal utility of 6th unit is total utility of 6 units minus total utility of 6 minus 1, 5th unit. So when you see here in the previous slide, Uh, the marginal utility of 6th unit is 7, which is equal to total utility of 6 units minus total utility of 6 minus 1, that is 5th unit. The difference is this. This is the marginal utility of 6th unit of this product. The rational consumer behavior. A consumer is rational. I want to know more from you. Which of the characteristics or which of the examples they highlight that a consumer is rational? Please give me some more example of consumer rationality. Who would you call a rational consumer and who you think is irrational consumer? A rational consumer behavior. Economics is a two-way traffic. We get, we pay. What we get is marginal utility. What we pay is the price. As long as what you get is more than what you pay, you consume more till you reach a point where what you get is equal to what you pay. But if you get less than what you pay, that's an irrational consumption. Yeah, makes sense? So for example, consumer surplus. Based on what I just said now, the rational consumer behavior. Based on this, we can make a concept of consumer surplus. I will come back to this rationality again, but here it's very important to understand this concept of consumer surplus. Consumer surplus. The consumer surplus is you board off the plane at Uvascula Airport, which is very far away. It's a daytime. It's a daytime. Normally, there's no taxi unless you call. Imagine that there are cabs there, there are taxis there. You want to come to Yamk. Remember, I'm highlighting it's a daytime. You have a certain price. If you are in an urgency for a meeting, that I have a meeting, I must reach Yamk as soon as possible, then the price which you have in your head, which you are willing to pay for a cab is different. Huh? Yes. But if you think that, no, I'm going to my apartment and it's my day off, then the price which, the maximum price which you are prepared, willing to pay in your head, you never disclose, you never go to a cab driver and say, hey, you know what, I don't ask what you charge, but I'm willing to pay you this much. The price which you are willing to pay is different. Maybe lower than, when you are in an emergency situation, you say, I just want to attend the meeting at whatever the price or whatever the cost. You use these expressions, yeah? So then you have different notion. So what we do here is that you have a certain price in your mind. And let's say that you are willing to pay 50 euros to the taxi driver, okay? And then you knock, either you agree in some countries, in some situation, you even agree already how much you will pay, or you will go by the meter or whatever situation. I don't go into that technicalities, but the price which you ultimately end up paying is 30 euros. It means the difference between the price you were prepared to pay or willing to pay and the price which you actually pay is consumer surplus. In the last example, the price you're willing to pay was 50 euros, but the price which you pay is 30. Hence, your consumer surplus is plus 20 in this case. We never always pay the maximum price. Here, the consumer surplus is 20, okay? Because 50 50 reflect what? 50 reflect your marginal utility. Your attending meeting at Yum at noon is so essential that you are desperate to look for a taxi. I know once I was in Antwerp and my train from Antwerp to Brussels was in 20 minutes and the hotel was half an hour away, not half an hour, but at least you, if during daytime, it could take half an hour. And there, I called taxi and that guy ditched me, he didn't come. And I had a real situation. I mean, I given the choice, even somebody stops, just a normal person in a car, asked me, hey, no taxi, but I charge 50 euro from now. I would have paid. Because for me, attending this next meeting in Brussels was so important. So that was my price, which I was prepared to pay. But then guess what? I got a tram, almost 1/10 of the price of a taxi. And I didn't realize that the cab would go through only through certain ways, which are only allowed for traffic. But the tram can go straight. It doesn't go too many turns. And I was there at the station almost the same time. So for the given quality of service, I was willing to pay a huge amount of price, but I ended up paying very less. Without realizing, I had a substantial consumer surplus in that example. Okay, so the consumer surplus in this case. So what you are willing to pay is showing your value you attach to that service. Hence, the maximum price you are willing to pay is reflecting, showing your marginal utility. And P, the price, is what you pay. And if the difference is positive, consumer surplus is positive. You make a jackpot, if not jackpot. But you made a bargain. But the consumer surplus can be negative also. It's not always positive. You think that, hey, I'm not in a rush. I just have to go to my apartment. I don't think I'll pay more than 30 euros. But no taxi, 1, 2, 3, there's no other mean of, and everybody is asking for 50 euros. Then you say, come on, there's no choice. I have wasted my 1 hour waiting for a cheap taxi. There's no bus. So I have no choice but to go. Ultimately, I have to go home. And then, fine, no problem. It's a one-off thing. I can pay. But in that case, your consumer surplus is negative. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, at a given time, in a given situation. Okay, let's do this way. If you have a meeting in Yum and you are at the airport, you are willing to pay 60. Yeah, in your mind, you pay 30. Your consumer surplus is 30, yeah? 60 minus 30. But if it's a normal time and you say that, you know what, I can go home an hour late, doesn't matter, but not too late. But there's no real rush. And in that case, you are willing to pay 40, but you end up paying still 30. Then your consumer surplus goes down, 10. It can be positive, it can be even negative. So your situations vary. Your situations vary, your mental state vary, hence your marginal utility varies. Hence the price you're willing to pay varies. But the price which you pay, the driver doesn't know that you are in a rush or not. Hopefully, he would charge the same price in a given situation. Huh? Exactly. But this, you see what consumer surplus is equal to, look at the formula. Consumer surplus is equal to the price you're willing to pay minus the price you pay, assuming that the price you pay is constant. But then the dynamic thing is what? The price which you are willing to pay. That is not constant. You catch a flight in the morning, you land at Uvascula Airport during the daytime. Now you land in the middle of the night, on the winter night, December night. Now this desperation would reflect on the price which you are willing to pay. Does it make sense? Mhm. So you mean that if there's a product scarcity, so should we go for the more monopolistic system? That's your idea. Okay, all right. Mhm. Okay, it's easy money. Yeah, it depends if you look for easy money or if you look for if you have a long-term business orientation. Mhm. Maybe if you go by this, then the state would even nationalize the taxi business as well. Mhm. Mhm. Do you think that the state would nationalize the taxi business then? Okay. Care what? Care for the monopolies or care for the people? Mhm. Yeah, yeah, good point. And I think monopoly is not a bad word altogether. Look at the state monopoly in Finland in the field of education or health. I think they're not so draconian, they're not so kind of money oriented. You get my point? You have the good services. So it depends upon who is monopolist. I would not hate monopoly per se. I would see who's monopolist. What is his or her agenda? If it is a state, and if it's a, again, once again, the state is not always not automatically assumed to be generous, philanthropic. If you're living in a very kind of uh, autocracy regime, then don't assume that they would be very generous to you. But if you're living in a welfare state, then you can assume that the state would be taking care of you. Yes.